Good evening, Right Side Nation. This is Mike Hanley with Right Side News. It's June 1st, and it is about 12 a.m. on the West Coast. I'm just sitting down, got off work a little bit ago, and I'm putting this video together in regards to the double standard with celebrities in terms of repercussions of comments. I think there's kind of a fine line here, and I think we need to dive in a little bit and talk about free speech and kind of what that means, and people being punished for certain words or certain phrases that they use, be it tweets or on air on their TV shows. The ones that come to mind are Samantha Bee and Roseanne Barr. So those are two people that have definitely been in the news this week. First, I want to talk a little bit about the jobs numbers that came out. We have an unemployment rate now at 3.8%. We have black unemployment rate below 6% for the first time in history. And we have the lowest unemployment rate overall in 18 years. Potentially also, I saw a tweet from Charlie Kirk from the Atlanta Fed showing that potentially the U.S. GDP could be at 4.7, so gross domestic product for product, and growth coming out of the United States would be at 4.7%, and compare that with Barack Obama's economy, which was a stagnant 1%. This is absolutely great news and a lot to look forward to in the coming years. I mean, let's remember, this is only about 18 months into Trump's presidency. So if he can grow the economy additional 3.7% over Barack Obama's 1, who knows what he can do over a 4-year span. And if we give him 8, I mean, shoot, our GDP could be up to 10, 11, 12%. And at that point, if it is, that's great economic growth, and our country will be absolutely thriving. So there's a lot to look forward to in the coming years, and we just hope that we continue on this path of job creation, job growth, wage increases, and just overall American prosperity. So I like to jump into the double standard that's been set forth by media and corporations in regards to different celebrities speaking out and the repercussions that go along with that. So I found this article or this little video here by Tucker Carlson really interesting. He talks about some of the biggest stories that happen, and I think it speaks specifically to what I was talking about in terms of the double standard. We have Kathy Griffin, who is, I mean, she's completely unhinged. We all remember the tweet she put out holding Donald Trump's bloody head as if it had been cut off. And then we also have Samantha Bee, who is in the news this week for calling Ivanka Trump a feckless cunt, which is very interesting language to use, considering up on the screen she was showing a picture of Ivanka holding her baby. And so what I wanted to do here was just play this video of Tucker Carlson talking about what is going on and what this really means. So hold on one second, let me go ahead and throw this on.
Sometimes the biggest stories get the least coverage. Something transformative happens that changes everything and nobody notices. Well, it's happened here. For the last 2 years or so, the rest of us have watched as the Democratic Party has been utterly transformed into something totally different. What was once the stodgy headquarters of the center-left establishment, the party of Harry Reid and Steny Hoyer and guys like that, now looks like a scene out of Burning Man, so far without the nudity. Starting on Inauguration Day, Democrats erupted in a primal scream, and they have not yet stopped yelling. Everything changed once Trump got elected. Celebrities threatened to abandon this country. Business leaders started behaving like political activists. Candidates for office embraced positions so extreme that they'd rejected them just months before. News reporters became rigid propagandists. And then, weirdest of all, comedians lost their sense of humor. Here, for example, is deeply unfunny comedian Samantha Bee lecturing America about Ivanka Trump last night. Watch.
You know, Ivanka, that's a beautiful photo of you and your child, but let me just say, one mother to another, do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless. He tell your father to stop it.
A dumb person's political harangue masquerading as comedy. Well, profoundly sad filmmaker Michael Moore proclaimed all what you just saw, quote, brilliant. He called Samantha Bee a truth teller. Comedian Billy Eichner wrote on Twitter he thought Bee was being, quote, generous. Tonight, Bee is receiving an award from the Television Academy for, quote, leveraging the dynamic power of television to inspire social change. Well, Samantha Bee later apologized for that on Twitter, assuming a tweet rates as an apology. But doubtless that's just temporary. She'll likely be bragging about all of this at another award ceremony very soon. Meanwhile, Kathy Griffin, who is probably the single unhappiest person in this country, used her appearance on a daytime show called The View to launch another political lecture. When White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders responded to that, Griffin wrote a profane tweet attacking Sarah Sanders. Blah, 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 blah. F you, basically. Where did Kathy Griffin learn to talk like that? Well, maybe from U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, who is now regularly using the F word in her public appearances. Here's one.
So what about President Trump? Has he kept any of these promises? No. No. Fundamentally, if we are not helping people, we should go the home.
Now, she's not the quickest of the U.S. senators, but even so, it says something broader about what's happening in the Democratic Party. So the left is arguing that Trump is radical. How have they responded?
So, just looking into what Tucker Carlson is saying there, I think what we're starting to see is people starting to use language that is even more and more divisive because things aren't going their way. So when they're using terms like feckless cunt or fuck no, Trump isn't doing something, I think we have to sit down and kind of see what's been going on. Because over the past, like Tucker Carlson said, since Trump has been the sitting president, and even before that, during the political campaign, we've seen different language than ever before used in politics. And so when we're sitting here looking at this, we've seen a lot of what the Democrats have used. So it seems to me like the Democrats are creating this platform like, okay, we're going up, we're going up, we're going up. And then now it's almost like they've hit the edge of a cliff, and they don't know what to do because Trump continues to move forward. He continues to go on an upward trajectory, and it's almost like they'll do anything, and especially say anything, to take him down. And so when we're seeing the success of Trump, we're seeing these people become more and more unhinged. And I think it's essentially the Democratic Party cannibalizing itself. It's these people who are just, grasping at straws to do anything or say anything, like I said, to take Trump down. And so, as we continue to move forward in this political atmosphere where people are so against one another, it seems, we're having people get very personal and have personal attacks. And when we're seeing this, for instance, the other day I spoke about Roseanne Barr, who said that the Planet of the Apes and some other entity had a baby and it equaled Valerie Jarrett. And so that tweet right there cost Roseanne Barr her show and a bunch of money for herself and her other cast members. It also lost ABC, where Roseanne Barr's show was being aired on, $30 million in advertisement funding. And so, we're seeing comments hurt people financially. And I think it's a very fine line, because I saw a tweet the other day from somebody that said, do we want to see Samantha Barr fired or taken off air because what she said about Ivanka Trump? I mean, I don't see the point in it, to be completely honest. I think people should be able to say what they want to say, unless it's some type of threat, and in a capitalist economy determine the supply and the demand of what one person is offering, whether it be a product or a show, determine whether or not they're taken off the air. Now, I understand some things become so egregious after a while, it's maybe they should be taken off just because it's so malicious. But I think, we see somebody like Chelsea Handler. She's a comedian, and in my personal opinion, she can make whatever joke, however the way she wants to say it, and it will be determined whether or not people want to hear it. And that's all based on ratings. And as we know, Donald Trump talks plenty about ratings. I mean, the whole idea here is that if people want to say something, they should be able to say what they want to say, because it all bears down to the First Amendment, which is the freedom of speech. This right here is a picture of Joy Reid, who is an MSNBC talking head. And I just really want to talk a little bit about her and her situation. I find her comments and her commentary to be very divisive. A lot of it is based on race and racism, and I believe a lot of her comments hold no weight in terms of her arguments don't add up. 1 + 1 with her does not equal 2. And so what I've done here is I've pulled up this article from The Hill that talks about Joy Reid and some of her blogging and her personal blog, and it talks specifically about Wolf Blitzer, who's on CNN, and calling him a former flack for the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee. And then she also goes on to say that he doesn't even try to hide his affinity for Israeli guests. And so it's this whole idea that somebody with her platform sits up here and points out that Wolf Blitzer has an affinity for Israeli guests. I mean, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but I mean, she's coming under heat in her particular position, and she's then having to go back and apologize for her blog. And so, for me, this is one of these things where people are just digging up in someone else's past and seeing some of the things they've said. Now, with her, it has been a pattern, and I talked a little bit about this earlier. I can't speak to how malicious her content is, but when she's continually, trying to point out that, Wolf Blitzer is, maybe pro-Israeli, well, so what if he is? Does it mean if you're pro-Israeli, you're anti-black, or you're anti-African American, or are you anti-white? These are the things that come to mind, and so I just think it's super important that from what someone has worked off of, and from what I've seen from Joy Reid, let's just say she's not one of my favorites. But I just thought this was another example of where people are looking at what people are saying and some of the ramifications that are coming forth. And like I said, I just think it should all be based on free market capitalism, where somebody says something or has a show or has a particular product, and then that product or show either is successful or it isn't, regardless of whether or not people like what they say, what I say, what other people say, unless it's a direct threat or extremely malicious, and it happens consistently over a longer period of time. Should we really look at taking somebody off there or hurting their economic security? Because number one, it's the freedom of speech, and perhaps, you have no freedom of speech without the Second Amendment, my friends. Second Amendment, it's a beautiful thing. So this is just kind of what I wanted to throw together tonight. Just talk a little bit about, how these corporations and how the media is essentially trying to support or take down people based on what they're saying. And I think it all goes back to that freedom of speech. And I just really like that little piece also from Tucker Carlson and where he was going with that. So, I hope you all like this. Just a little short little video tonight, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Trump excuse me, specifically the Trump economy, and then also QAnon. I speak previously about QAnon, and to be honest, I'm not knowledgeable enough, so I'm going to be following him or following Q, the whole group Q, as Trump does. Anyhow, I hope you all have a great weekend. Have a wonderful June, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Good night.